So the key takeaways were for a lot of the tribes, and especially the rural communities and adjacent rural communities, big issues are like communication, getting the right communication to the right people during emergencies, and then training and access to knowledge before the emergencies. So we talked a lot about fuels reduction, fuel breaks, bringing back like controlled and cultural burning to the land. But then there's also like the federal government, the state government sometimes steps in the way of some of these burns, so it's hard to do that before the emergencies. Resources that are available, how do we get those resources to the right people, like the grants and the people available at the state level, getting that actual access for the tribes, building partnerships and relationships to assist with this. Community mapping is a big issue, making sure that all your homes and people living on your lands, people know where they are and how to tell them, hey, there's an emergency happening, how do we get them out, how do we get their animals out, horses and things. And then I guess the other big thing is, training, making sure the people of the tribes or your communities have the training, not just the want to. So when there actually is an emergency, the people have like CPR training or they know what to do. They don't just show up and say, hey, we brought food. We got to make sure they have the right training to bring the right materials and the right skills for when a wildfire does happen.
All right, thank you, Kurt. And then our 3-month-old infant in working for a tribe here is Jeremy Jordan, who moved here from Texas to work for Palma. And I'm going to let him talk about what our wildfire group talked about. Jeremy.
I'm an infant, yeah. I thought about this whole way up. Thank you for that. My name is Jeremy Jordan. I'm with Palma. I'm the new grants manager, like Sasha said. Our group seemed to have some experts that experienced wildfires, that manage wildfires. So our group was able to identify some of those technical advisors and resources within the state and the apparatus of fire management. They identified some of the cultural burns, necessity for land management. There was a gentleman in the group that used a term called COOP, which is continuity of operations planning. And then we also talked about hazard mitigation plans. Talked about gridding out through zones. Grids is what I said. Identifying a point of contact list of the folks on the tribe. Hazard mitigation plans are important. There's folks in the room that are grant funded or state funded to help develop and build those out for you. So we'll try to find those folks in the room. Fuel mitigation, cultural burns, and returning good fire back to the land.
Yeah, and yeah, let's see that my group, please applaud. And since that was my group, and because I have a microphone, I'm going to add a little bit to that. We did have a robust conversation. There was a lot of us, and so it's a little hard to give everybody an opportunity, but everybody had something good to say. And so one of the main things we kept coming back to, it seemed like, was cultural burns, those cultural burns. Now, a cultural burn is not itself an immediate disaster response. You don't say, oh, we're having a flood, let's go start a cultural burn. It's a hot day, let's go start no. But that's an adaptation, right? If you're managing the land correctly with fire, then you are less likely to experience these devastating wildfires. And there was one example where a cultural burn, and this YTT, where's Becca? Yeah, so where they had a cultural burn, and then there was a fire, and their fire was stopped by the area where they had their cultural burn. I mean, it gives me chills even to say it. You want to talk about a huge success? That is a huge success. And then our neighbors in Kauai, which is maybe, 30 miles from Paula, they also had a really amazing idea that just was like, mind blown. They had 2 fires up there recently. And is it Jason? Jason, who is with their solid waste management team, you know what they do every week? They go and they pick up the trash. You know what that means when you go and pick up the trash every day? You know where everybody lives. When you know where everybody lives and there's a fire, who do you send out to warn people that there's a fire and tell them to evacuate? Your waste management team. Wow! We have a tribal services department. They know where everybody is. I also have at our transfer station guys who go out and pick up recycling, and they're actually a great team, but I made fun of them. I'm like, those guys are more likely to start fires than they are to go and, help people evacuate. But that is an amazing example of using what your tribe already has in place and repurposing it for something so important. And not to mention that Jason and his team, if you live on the reservation, you're worried about your own families and your own properties, but you're out there doing the community work of telling people to get out. So I want to give Jason a round of applause for the best idea I've heard so far. And then Carrie from Moortown was talking about some of their needs and how when there were evacuations during, where's Carrie? Carrie, would you please once again list off the fires that you've dealt with over the last 5 years or so? Yeah, so wow, those are fires that are not just local or national or state, that's international news when you're dealing with fires like that. Some of the biggest fires in California history until next year when there's now a different biggest fire in California history, and I think all of those are probably in the top 10. So they were having issues with people evacuating. Where were they going to go? And people were actually setting up tents in people's yards because they had nowhere else to go. So one of their needs is a safe place for people to evacuate to and stay for a while things get cleaned up from the fire. So that's something for future planning so that when that happens again, hopefully it doesn't happen again, but we all know what happens. Disasters are perpetual. So you have to be prepared for that. But they also set up drive-through resource distribution points where they had 2 big buildings where you don't even have to get out of your car. You can drive your car through and you can get food, you can get water, you can get, probably blankets and, things like that, other sorts of equipment. What a fantastic idea. We did something somewhat similar in Paula during COVID, actually, where we were distributing food from the warehouse where the casino stores food. And that was also sort of an emergency where suddenly the casino closed. There's all this food that wasn't going to be eaten because there weren't people here. So that food got distributed to people in the community, so at least the food didn't go to waste. But I love the idea of it being drive-through. It makes it just as easy as possible for people to get where they need to go, especially when you've got maybe elders who aren't going to be able to easily get out of the car. They're certainly not going to carry heavy resources. So I'm amazed at the amount of experience and innovation that we're seeing